Greetings, programs. I'm Stephen McNutt, and today we're going to talk about Cisco Secure Client, aka AnyConnect 5. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's just hop right in and get going. All right, so first off, why are we calling it Secure Client instead of AnyConnect 5? Well, there's a lot of changes, as you're about to see. So architecturally, we need to address two things. The first one is agent sprawl, right? So there's a bunch of different components that have become part of an endpoint security stack over the last few years, and those would be things like VPN, endpoint detection and response, secure web gateway, posture, all that kind of stuff, right? And so what's happened is just there's been this sort of component sprawl where you just have all these different agent bits that you not only have to install separately, but you've got to manage those configurations in different places. Real pain in the butt, right? There's a second reason, and that is each of these components has its own schema for how it describes these endpoints, right? And so if you're trying to take these products and make them work together, that can be problematic because maybe you have one tool that has one set of attributes for an endpoint and another tool that has another. So when you're using one as input in order to do output or enforcement in another tool, there may be some issues there with getting all that to work smoothly. So what we did is Cisco came up with this solution that combines two major pieces. The first is SecureX Device Insights. This gives us a common endpoint object or schema from which we can pull from to learn to get information and perform operations. And then the second part is the Cisco Secure Client. So we're actually going to talk about both today. First off, a little more chalk talk. Initially, just the 1.0 release is Windows only. The upgrade is seamless, so if you're already deployed, it'll just install right over the top of it. Under the hood, it does leverage some of the existing AnyConnect framework, but we have an entirely new cloud management system, which is controlled from SecureX. So this is the SecureX Device Insights. I just wanted to kind of point this out that the database schema for the endpoints is extensible. So it's not just, oh yeah, just Cisco products or whatever. You can actually ingest attributes from a bunch of predefined sources, but you can also create your own custom sources if you want, not only a secure client. So it's an extensible endpoint schema. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to the SecureX Insights dashboard and take a look at this thing. So this is SecureX Device Insights, and as you can see, I have 5 devices in here. I have 2 desktop, 2 virtual, and a mobile device. And you'll notice that I have 2 managed and 3 unmanaged. So we're going to talk about that in just a second too. So let's scroll down and take a look at our table. So one thing I'll want to call your attention to is up on this upper right-hand part, you can customize these columns. So for example, you can add IP addresses and MAC addresses and anything that you might find interesting. And if we take a look here, we've got these device names, you have the operating system, version, that sort of thing. And notice under user scene, only one of these devices has that information, right? So we'll talk about that, why that is in just a second. And in the sources column, so sources is going to be where Device Insights is getting its data from. And like in this case, for example, we're only getting data from Umbrella. In this case, we're getting data from Secure Endpoint. In this case of this machine, we're actually getting data from a number of sources. As you notice, we have Secure Endpoint, Umbrella, Meraki Systems Management, and Secure Client. The one down below it, we're getting a few more things, and then my iPad, the only thing that we're getting from that is Systems Manager. So if we go over to this column here, and this is maybe a little confusing, so let me explain it. Managed does not mean managed by SecureX Device Insights. Managed means, does this device have a machine manager? So, for example, a mobile device management, anything like that. Ultimately, under the hood, it's just a flag in the database, right, for this device. So in this case, because it's managed, this device is managed by Meraki Systems Manager. The managed flag is yes, and the same thing for my iPad. And so that's what this managed flag means. It doesn't mean managed by Device Insights. So that's a potentially a point of confusion, right? So let's take a look at this one here, because this has like the richest amount of information. So if I drill into this device, we can see that there's a lot of just a wealth of information available to us. So this is where the Insights gets its name. Insights is able to tell us, oh yeah, this is an out-of-life operating system. This is useful because we can use this information for purposes of automation, right? We could use that as a condition in a workflow, which is under orchestration, and that would be like a video for later. And under here we have all these details. And again, these details, these attributes, they're coming from different sources. So this is a composite list of attributes that SecureX Device Insights has learned from all those different sources that are sending information into it. So this would be a combination of all of those things. So as you can see, we've got quite a lot. We got private IPs and public IPs, MAC addresses. We even have VMware information, which is like pretty cool. Dislocation information, all kinds of stuff. So we have secure endpoint. We can see what our status is in there. We can cross-launch directly into secure endpoint to work with it if we want. And under here, this vulnerabilities, this is a product called Kenna, which I don't have integrated into my lab, but this is a super cool thing. Maybe I'll do a video on that later. And over here, we just have our security products and whether they're installed. And obviously full disk encryption, that would be pretty important. Automatic updates would be, pretty important. So this is just, again, not fully populated, but these are things that you might see if you had some other stuff installed. So down here is just a list of sources that we're getting attributes from. So we can see our secure endpoint, and we can actually see what policy is being implemented on this particular endpoint. Same thing with Umbrella. We can see what policy has been applied to this thing. Meraki Systems Manager, we can see again a bunch of information about that. And then of course Secure Client, which is the part that's actually managed from SecureX. And so we can see our deployment profile, what modules we've deployed and their versions. And remember I talked about how we're going to have a common endpoint for descriptor across products, and so you have to have some kind of key field, right? And so that's going to be this right here. So that Cisco Secure Client device identifier. So that's what we're going to use if you want to use this like in a workflow or something to reference this particular endpoint. And as you can see here, you can also drill down, look at the event log, and see everything, additional information. Let's actually go back up one level, and what I want to do is show you the difference between where something like that where we just have a rich amount of information because we have so many sources. And let's look at something where maybe we're not getting as much, like this device here that the only source we have of information is Umbrella, right? So from Umbrella, we're learning not a lot, right? As you can see, there's not a ton. We're not learning a ton. We're learning about the operating system and what Umbrella policy we have deployed, but not a lot else, right? So let's look at another one. Let's look at, here we go. So here's my MacBook Pro where I only deployed the secure endpoint with no other modules. And we're getting like a decent amount of information. Notice location is empty, and that's because when we looked at the other computer, we were getting that through Meraki System Manager. So we have a decent amount of information, but definitely not as much as we had where we have, more sources. So should we look at another one? Let's take a look here. I think that's good enough. Let's take a look at our sources real briefly. So these sources, the way these are actually configured, and this is a really good point too, is for example, like Duo, like let's say I just did a deployment or there's some changes and I want to make sure that they get pulled in right away so that they show up in this inventory in Device Insights. You can click the sync button on pretty much any of these sources. So we have Duo. I have Duo configured, Meraki Systems Manager, Secure Client, which is, of course, that's configured, and then Secure Endpoint. So where these actually come from is under the integration modules. These are all the different built-in integration modules that you can add into SecureX. And these are the ones under my integration modules. These are the ones I already have configured. So the nice thing is, when you configure these modules, you can use them for a lot more than just insights, right? You can use them for orchestration. You can use them for threat hunting, for like all kinds of stuff, right? But in this case, Device Insights is able to leverage some of these for information. And we can also use that in other places, which I'll show you in just a second. So let's actually hop down to the next thing I want to show you, which is we're going to jump to profiles and cloud management. So cloud management is actually the profile for the cloud module in Secure Client. So the cloud management module is how Secure Client talks to the SecureX backend and gets information and gets updated and all that sort of thing, right? So there's actually several submodules inside that cloud module. There's what's called the identity service, which provides some basic information. And then there's the package manager, and the package manager is all of the modules that you would install using the Secure Client, right? And then the cloud management service is just what it sounds like. So that's where it's just going to check in and send logging information and stuff like that. It's basically the control plane for the Secure Client. And then the product update window is exactly what it sounds like. This is just so that you can control when products are updated, like when updates get downloaded and configured. And this is a pretty standard type of item that you see in a lot of products. So this is our key component here. So let's actually hop up and take a look at our deployment management tool. And so here's our cloud management module. And this is the profile, right, that I showed you is plugged in right there, right? And then we're going to actually, in our lab here, we're going to also we're going to deploy Secure Endpoint. In this release, Secure Endpoint is tightly coupled with the Secure Client. So the integration is really great. So if you already have the integration built up, adding in Secure Endpoint, you just click this replace bootstrap file. You can have multiple Secure Endpoint tenants associated with your account. So that's just whatever your particular SecureX account. If you actually have access to multiple Secure Endpoint tenants, those would all be listed here. In this case, I just have my lab tenant, which is this guy here. And then from that, if we click choose a group, it will actually make API call to Secure Endpoint in the backend, get a list of all the configured groups. And yeah, I'm boring. I haven't really customized my Secure Endpoint lab too much. So we're just picking at a default group, which is audit. And we're also going to deploy the umbrella module. And I'm going to hop back over to the profile real quick and show you where that is. So if we go look at umbrella is like ridiculously simple. Basically, it's just the orginfo.json. You just log into the umbrella website and go to deployments, roaming client, and you click a button, you download it, and you just upload it right here. So that hasn't really changed much. Let's go back and let's look at the other component we're going to deploy is AnyConnect. And we're also going to do Dart because everyone loves the Dart. Notice I have an AnyConnect profile. So let's look at that. That's, I think, really cool. Anyone who's had to administer AnyConnect knows about the AnyConnect profile editor, which goes all the way back to the days of ASDM and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty old, and it's Java based. So now you have a brand new super bitchin' turbo kung fu version that lives in the SecureX GUI, right? So if you scroll through this, and I'm not going to show all the little buttons and dials, but you'll see all the things that you've been working with, for all these years are still there. All the little buttons and knobs are there, but now they're just implemented in this web page. So you don't have to download any bits. You don't have to go download Java or any of that kind of stuff. It's all the normal stuff is there. So pretty straightforward. You can see got my server that I'm connecting to. And that's that. So let's go back to our deployment management. And let's see. All right, cool. All right. Here's something else I want to show you. So once you've created a deployment you've created a deployment. So that's what this is called. You can download it, and you can either do the full installer or the network installer. So what's the difference? Full installer it takes everything. So it takes all the config, it takes all the binaries for all of these modules, and it just rolls them all up into one self-extracting executable. What is the network installer? The network installer is just the cloud management. It's Secure Client with the cloud management component, and then it just has all the instructions. And what it does is it will reach out and download these other components. So that's pretty much all it is. Very, very straightforward. I guess I did gloss over this, but you can do, with these deployments, you can do version management, right? So you can actually, for example, you could say, okay, well, I don't want to change versions or something like that, right? So that's something I probably should have pointed out. So now that we've looked at the kind of the front end, let's actually go ahead and deploy this thing and see what it looks like on a client. So let's hop over here. And I went ahead and took the liberty of downloading the binary ahead of time. And that's this guy here. So I want to show you something kind of interesting. And that is, because it's a self-extracting executable, we can actually open this guy up with 7-zip. So let's do that. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Let's back up here for a second. I meant to use... There we go. Come on. There we are. So let's extract. So we're going to actually take this package and we're going to open it. And notice we have this resources folder. And if we look inside this resources folder, I'm going to take the liberty of sorting by size, which will make sense in a moment. Okay. So notice we have some JSON files, right? So this is going to be our Umbrella org info file. So that should be familiar to anyone who's used Umbrella, right? This is our cloud management file. So all the things we configured in this cloud management profile right here, that is this. So these are this is, let's look, let me see. And what we need to do is, okay, we'll do it this way. So we'll drop this in here. There we go. Do a word wrap here. There it is, word wrap. All right. So this is all those settings. So this just has the logging levels and the update intervals and all that kind of stuff, right? So if we were to hop back and look over here, we would see all that. So for example, I've got this dialed all the way up where I'm doing debugging and I'm checking in every 2 hours. I've got it set up to be extremely noisy, and that's just because that's what you always do when you're doing labs and stuff. So but all that's in here. Let's look at the next one. Okay, so BS would be the business services, I think. Let's drag this over here and take a look. Yep. So would be this, okay, so this business ID, this is pretty interesting. So what that business ID corresponds to, I believe, that is going to be your organization ID in SecureX. So kind of interesting, right? Let's see if that's true. Let's see if that's true. 1899D3. What do we got over here? There you go. So this business ID, that's actually your SecureX org ID. And then you've got 3 URLs. You have an event URL. So that's where, if we were to go back over here and go to Insights and we were to actually look at device events, that's where this goes. So that's the URL that tells the client management tool where to send events. We have another one that tells it where to send identity information, right? And then we also have a unique ID for installer key. And this might actually be the UUID. Let's check that 681. Let's see. Inventory overview. Okay, that's just going to be the unique identifier. The installer instance is probably not worth digging for. Okay. Yeah, let's see what else might be interesting. Actions.json. This is an interesting file. So what is actions.json? Actions.json is the file that actually defines all the settings for how all the modules will get installed. So this is sort of like a metadata, sort of like an installation script. So kind of might be useful for troubleshooting purposes. What do we have here? And then this is going to be our AnyConnect XML file. And this Bootstrap XML file, that's going to be your standard AMP Bootstrap file, or Secure Endpoint Bootstrap file that describes how to connect to Secure Endpoint. So these are all the config files. And then under here, these are going to be the actual binaries. So that's our umbrella module. That's our Dart module, right? That's our cloud management module. That's our AnyConnect module. So kind of cool, right? And I think we've had enough fun looking at JSON files. Let's actually launch the binary. So this is what it looks like interactively. And of course you can just run it with switches and just have it silently install in the background. That's probably obvious. So let's just hit continue. And I'm going to pause the video because you probably don't want to watch this, right? This is pretty boring. So I'll be right back. Okay. And we're back. So now you can see the install is completed. And now we have Secure Client. And so everything's all configured. So Secure Endpoint, it takes a second, but it'll connect eventually. And you can see my VPN profile, which I call Steve Cloud. That's configured and ready to go. If we look click on this guy here, we can see, so right now we don't have a VPN connection. So this is a little bit different than the old AnyConnect client in that the integration with Secure Endpoint and Umbrella is a little more robust, right? So whereas they were sort of separate little agents. For example, like there was like an AMP enabler for Secure Endpoint before, but it wasn't integrated to the degree that it is, where you're getting all of these, statistics and stuff. See, now we're connected. Cool. And one thing I'd like to point out is, like, with the new integration, you can now perform, operations directly from here, whereas it was just you couldn't really do anything with the old module. So that's basically what it looks like. So we did that deployment 100% from SecureX, right? We didn't have to download any bits to our desktop or go through anything like that. We just logged into SecureX, clicked a few buttons, download the binary, fired it, and we're up and running and working. And what's really great, of course, is that then after that, all that beautiful information is going to come back and it's going to populate into Device Insights. Okay, so that was it. I really hope this was helpful for you, and be safe out there, and may you care for yourself with ease. Thanks. Have a good one.